Eisner, Jessica Long, thank you both for being with us this evening. First thing I'd like to know, when, and this is to both of you, but I guess let me see, we'll start with Kimmie. I think you're the senior by a little bit here. When do you remember getting your first taste of your chosen sports? For Kimmie, it's figure skating. For Jessica, competitive swimming. So Kimmie, when did all that start to click for you?
So, I mean, I remember when I first started skating, which was back when I was 6, and I'm 30 now. So I think I am the senior here. But I remember when I first started skating, I knew almost right away that it was something that I would do my entire life, just because it just clicked. I mean, it's a hard feeling to describe, but it's like, I just kind of knew I loved it. And then I guess when it really kind of made sense for me to like start wanting to train and maybe think about being really competitive, it's probably when I landed my single axle jump. And it was like just so fun to actually rotate a jump and kind of feel like it felt really cool at the rink. Like, oh, I can do this rotational jump now. Like things are really working for me. So that kind of got me on the hook, just getting that one first like little jump.
Did when you first started skating, was it a struggle or did it come easily to you?
Honestly, it came pretty easily for me. I mean, I definitely had to work to kind of get all my jumps. I needed to have determination to get there, but it was something that I kind of just took to. So I think, a lot of my coaches were able to recognize I had natural talent, and I was very lucky to kind of fall into the hands of really good and strong coaches that gave me a good foundation and also knew when to move me on. They were kind of like, all right, you're ready to go to this next level. They were able to kind of like guide me with that and help me along the way.
So Jessica, you're a swimmer, and you were adopted by a Maryland family, came over from Russia, and so when did the swimming thing get to you? How old were you, and what was the circumstances behind that?
Yeah, well, I've always loved to swim. I used to swim and learned how to swim in my grandparents' backyard pool. But before swimming, I tried all sorts of different sports. My parents were really great at making sure that I would stay active and just keep up with all the other kids with legs. But I was in gymnastics, loved it, but they were really afraid I would damage my knees over time. Because when I have my prosthetic legs off, I just get a little shorter, I walk on my knees. So they sat me down and said, Jess, we need to find a new sport. So over time, you're not damaging your knees, the only knees that you have. So we decided to try out swimming. And what I love so much about swimming, and especially being an amputee, is you're not allowed to wear any form of prosthetic. So I right away took to it. I loved it. At the time, my prosthetics were pretty heavy. They hurt. So I think that was a big push and a big reason I loved I felt so free in the water. I didn't feel, the weight of my prosthetics. And I also loved being a part of a team. And I loved how I was treated on the team. I was treated like a friend, a competitor. And then I thought it was really cool when I started beating the girls on the swim team with legs. And I think that's when it really hit me like, okay, like I could take this pretty far. And then we heard about the Paralympics, and right away I knew that I wanted to be a Paralympian.
Now, how old were you when you knew that?
Oh yeah, I was 10 years old when I joined the swim team, which is a little bit later in the swimming world. But I think in a way I had such a determination and such a drive to keep up. I never wanted to be looked at differently because I didn't have legs. So in a way, like I would show up to practice, and even as a little 10, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, I would show up to practice and get in and swim an hour before the swim team even started, just because I knew that I had weak strokes I had to work on and my technique, and I took to it pretty fast.
Okay. Well, if we can, this does not happen just by either of you. It requires support and your parents. I'd like you to talk with you a little bit about that. How supportive were your parents? And because they're huge time commitments. Were they all there for you all the time? Jessica, you got the floor.
I mean, yeah, I had incredible parents. I'm super thankful, super blessed, just feel, yeah, that was awesome. They really supported my dreams and my goals. And what I really love that my parents did, it was always my decision, my commitment to the sport. They were going to drive me back and forth to swim practice, but I also had to put in the work. And but they were always really great. If I ever wanted to just, stop swimming, they were okay with it. I had two parents that knew nothing about swimming. So they were just excited if I finished a race. But yeah, obviously they were so important. And I don't think at that age you realize how important and incredible and all the sacrifices that your parents are making just so you can get back and forth to swim practice. And I would go twice a day. And I'm one of 6 kids, so they made a lot of sacrifices. So they were pretty awesome, or they are awesome.
Now, did any of your other siblings, pursue athletics and all that stuff?
Yeah, my 2 younger sisters. So after I was adopted, my another little boy and I, after we were adopted from Russia, they ended up having 2 more miracle babies. So brought us to 6 kids, 4 girls and 2 boys. But my 2 younger sisters decided to swim, but later on found out that it really wasn't their thing. But they were on the swim team for a couple years.
Right. So Kimmie, tell me about your parents, who I have met, and wonderful people. But talk about the support they provided you.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Jessica said. It's something that you don't realize in the moment when you're younger. It's when you get older and you realize just how far it is to drive there and how much of a time and how much of their life they gave up to let you live out your dream. But my parents were incredible. It's very similar. Like, they never once forced skating onto me. They never made it seem like it was the end of the world if I didn't do well, or even if I did do well. They were like, come home and clean your room and like do your thing here. Like, you can't just all of a sudden get a big head over things. So, my parents, they made it happen. There's no way any top athlete gets to where they are without having some kind of support like that, or somebody behind the scenes who's making sure that they're all around healthy. As a coach now, it's something that I can recognize in a lot of my students. When they come in, I'm like, okay, they have this family support that's great. The parents are just here for their kids. They're not on top of them and like kind of getting on their case about it, because a lot of times I think athletes who make it pretty far in the sport, your drive comes from within you. You don't really need to have somebody like kind of telling you what to do or forcing you to do it. Like Jessica said, you want to get in the pool an hour before everybody else starts, or you want to stay on the ice longer after the sessions are over. It's something that comes from within you. So having a support system, like my parents and Jessica's parents, that's what actually makes it happen.
I remember
in my opinion, I think that's what makes it happen.
I remember the first time that I ever met you. You came to the Babe Ruth Museum to address a bunch of women sports correspondents, and put together by Ruth Sadler. And so there you are, and I was to MC or to introduce you, and there was your father right with you, right behind you the whole way. And I was so impressed with the synergy between the two of you, and he was so supportive of you, and it was really good stuff. Michael Phelps, another Marylander, another international star, such a huge star. He has been quoted as saying that when he worked his way up the ladder, he didn't have time for much else. He felt like he was in a bubble. And how do you guys feel about that? Has it, in your big competition days, were you in a bubble, Kimmie?
Yeah, I would say so. Your experience my experience was not the same as my peers. A lot of times I actually found myself relating more to people who were older than me, just because I was generally interacting with people on a different level, I guess. So I had kind of like interesting interactions with kids my age, because I wasn't experiencing the same things they were experiencing. I did not go to parties. I didn't do a lot of social events because I trained all day. And I came home and I had, 3 hours of homework, and I was exhausted from training the whole day and going to school. So yeah, I would agree with that statement. You have a whole nother experience that, I think back on it now and I'm like, I would definitely never change that or trade what I chose to do, because I got to travel the world. I got to have these experiences with my parents. I got to learn things outside of just skating and outside of my town of Bel Air. I got to see so much. But it is not the same as what the kids my age were experiencing. So that was kind of something when I finished up skating and kind of came back, there's some kind of like, you have to find that middle ground of like, okay, here's what happened to me when I was this age, and here's what you were doing at this age. And like, we got to find some way to connect, because it's definitely, it can, I guess it could be an isolating thing. You know, it's like I always say, like, my parents understand what it was like for me at that time, because they were there with me through it all. They also lived that exact same experience, just like my competitors. You know, I'm very close with a lot of my top competitors from then, because we lived the exact same experience. And it's something that people who didn't have that experience, they just can't understand. You know, why would you give up your whole life for this, you know?
Right. So people within the bubble became close because of the bubble, effectively. Yeah, that's pretty. Jessica, how about you? Same thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lots of sacrifice, lots of things that, you know, now that I've gotten older, looking back, I wouldn't have it any other way. In the moment, little things seemed hard, you know, missing a sleepover here and there. I've missed weddings, family vacations. But it was also, I had a lot of goals and a lot of things I wanted to achieve. And that really did come from within. And again, you know, thankful I had supportive parents and really supportive siblings, but I wasn't gonna let anything get in the way of achieving those goals and dreams. And I knew that it was going to take sacrifice. And I was homeschooled, so I already feel like I had kind of a, you know, different childhood. But, you know, my parents at one point gave me the option to go to school. But they said, you know, you have to cut back on swimming. We believe you could do it all, but, you know, we think you got to really focus on one right now. And I wanted to throw everything into swimming. And it's kind of nice because, you know, looking back, I realized that, you know, if I had gone to school and tried to keep up with all the swimming, like school was really hard for me. So I'm really thankful that I had the option to homeschool and, you know, work with, you know, different teachers and my siblings and travel the world. And it really, it worked out. I wouldn't have it any other way, but exactly what Kimmie was saying, I feel like I have a lot of older friends and my competitors or teammates, we can really relate to each other because we did miss out on a lot of little life events, but at the same time, we have so much life experience. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I read an interview you did several months ago, but it was during the coronavirus pandemic that you had been in touch with some of your competitive friends in Spain and Germany and stuff like that. So you stay in touch with the people inside your bubble, you know, on and on and on. They've become your friends, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we get to see each other. So I'm still actively competing. I have not hung up the swimsuit yet, but I mean, you know, now we have social media it's bigger than ever. And, you know, FaceTime, it's so nice to catch up with, you know, the other competitors, the other athletes. And that's been really exciting, the relationships that I've made along the way. But also, you know, I have a big family and I keep up with them and getting married last year, you know, and I'm still really busy, but at the same time, keeping swimming, you know, priority.
So she mentioned she got married, and coincidentally, Kimmie and Jessica got married at the same venue a couple of months apart. So these two have been tied to the hip for quite some time. We talk about your incredible careers and the stepping stones that you took to get where you got, to take up this whole interview. But I want to move along to other things. So let's fast forward now to when the both of you hit the international stage. Jessica, in 2004, you headed to your first Paralympic Games in Athens and took home 3 golds. You were 12 years old, I believe. Tell us about that, please.
Oh, it seems like another lifetime. Yeah, you know, Paralympics, it was amazing. It was something that I wanted to be a part of. I had heard of the Olympics, I'd heard of the Special Olympics, but I didn't know that there was something out there for me, you know, a girl missing her lower legs. And when, you know, my parents, we found out about the Paralympics, it was just something I knew I wanted to be a part of. So I'd only been swimming for a couple of years, made the 2004 Paralympic team in Athens. And I just had this determination. Maybe it was from, you know, being adopted from Russia. I just knew that I wanted to go to a Paralympics, and then I didn't just want to go. I wanted to somehow end up on top. And I think there's some, with the adoption, I think there was this drive to always prove that I was good enough, to prove whatever. But at the time, it was amazing. I ended up going to Athens, making the team, surprising everyone. And then I surprised everyone. And then I surprised myself when I ended up winning a gold medal, which was really exciting. It was my first race. And I think what helped me get ahead was the hours I spent on my technique. I remember doing 3-hour practices, doubles, weights, body weights at that age, you're only 12. But my first race was the 100-meter freestyle. And coming back, I was about 15 meters out from the wall, and I was racing the world record holder from Israel. And I just remember having this thought. I just said in my head, I did not come here to get second. And I touched the wall and I won by a fingernail. So a 1/10 of a second, it's the fingernail. And I just was so excited, and it jump-started my career, set the bar really high. But it's been a really exciting journey, and I'm still after my 5th Paralympics in Tokyo next year.
So, and Kimmie, you blossomed a little bit later, I guess, but nevertheless, before you were 16 years old, or by the time you were 16, you had exploded on the figure skating scene, becoming the second American woman in history to land a triple axel jump in competition. Did that serve notice, in your opinion, to the skating world that you were for real? Was that it?
I think that on the large scale, yes. But before that, I guess, I had kind of been working my way up to the senior level. So I had actually gone to nationals. I won the novice level. Then the next year I came back at junior and I won junior. And then the year after that is when I landed triple axel. So I know that US skating kind of had their eye on me starting when I was at novice, because I came on and I won. And at the time, what I had in my program technically was more difficult than the other US girls. I was trying to kind of push that technical side of things. So I know US skating was kind of looking at me then and kind of watching, pretty intensely what I was going to do and see if it was going to play out. So when I did my first senior nationals and landed triple axel and somehow made it on the podium, and it was kind of a big shock for everybody, including me, because I was up there with my idols. Michelle won that year. And I was like, how the heck am I standing on this podium with her? This is insane. So wow. I think that was definitely that was a moment where, I'd always believed in myself, but it was a moment where I was like, I did it. I'm here and I can actually compete with these girls. And I just need to keep doing what I'm doing, basically. It kind of reaffirmed everything I believed in. And US skating was kind of all right, this is what we saw. This is what we were expecting. So it was kind of nice to live up to those expectations. But kind of like Jessica said, then it's you set the bar pretty high, and now there are expectations on you of what's going to come next, so it's a whole different ballgame then.
By the way, for you watching this show tonight, look who we have here. These are true stars in the sports world. It's just wonderful. Kimmie, so that's 2005 when you land that triple axel. The next year, you captured the U.S. National Championship competition, and then go on to become the youngest member of the U.S. Olympic team. You finished 6th in the overall skating competition that year. Tell us about that. What happened?
Well, so I went that year. I came in 2nd. The year after that is when I ended up winning. No, it's all good. I went 3-2-1 at nationals at the senior level. So I just kind of got one of each medal, But yeah, it's funny because I was looking at the Olympics as this big long-term goal. It wasn't something that seemed, I guess, tangible that year in 2006. I still kind of felt like my time was going to be 2010, and I just was going to get the experience of skating at an Olympic qualifier. So when I came in 2nd, and it was all right, you're named to the team and you're going, it was a big shock. I mean, it was so much fun. I didn't expect it. So it kind of felt it just felt really unexpected and just really great, this awesome gift that you were given. And I had worked really, really hard to be at in that position. So going to the Olympics, I was kind of I'm at the Olympics. Like, this is insane. And I remember in the short, I skated like second out of like 36 or 40 girls, which in skating, you always want to be in the later groups. You never want to skate early on in the group because it's kind of like, they have so many people to watch then after that. And, they're not supposed to, but they kind of like hold back those points. So you always want to be skating towards the end of the group. But I made the final warm-up group after the short. So I think I was in like 5th or 4th or something after the short. So there was a possibility that I could actually make the podium if I just skated as how I had been skating. But I remember that night skating out there to start my program, and that was when it really hit me that I'm like, I'm here. Everybody's watching this on TV, and they're like, look, this arena is full, and like, I can't believe I'm actually about to do my program in the final group at the Olympics. And I just remember having that moment of like, oh my gosh. So I fought through some nerves in that program and managed to like keep it together and come in 6th, which I'm very proud of. But for how I had been skating, I had a shot to actually get a medal. And that's one of those things I look back on and I'm like, oh, if I had done the Olympics before, I probably would have been able to not be as nervous, but wow, it was still pretty awesome.
I hear you. Yeah. So Jessica, in 2006, so 2 years after your first Olympics, you went to Durban, South Africa, where you captured 9 golds in the Paralympic World Championships and set 5 world records. Then you followed that by winning 4 golds at the Olympics in Beijing. You must have felt like you were living in a whirlwind. There was nothing you couldn't conquer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was exciting. I think at that point I really developed all 4 strokes. I'd started out as a freestyler, and I had a little bit more experience. Going into South Africa, I was 14, so I had been training for about 4 years. But really, definitely developed all 4 of the strokes. But it was just, an exciting time. It's that age where you're dropping time. You definitely want to take advantage of it, swim in as many meets as possible. But yeah, it was going really well. But at the same time, I look back on my career, and obviously I'm so proud of the medals, and there's been a lot of really wonderful things, but that was a time that was just really hard. I thought all of my worth came from those medals. And looking back, it's so funny because after Beijing, what was it? I don't even know. But after Beijing, the 2008 games is when I wanted to retire. Just because I thought I had failed. So more than anything, I look at my entire career, and I'm really thankful, again, that I've definitely gone through the ups and the downs, or all the good days, the bad days while competing. But, to me, the medals are amazing, but they totally don't define me. It's been so exciting to be a part of this journey and to still be a part of it. And every day I just go back to that little 12-year-old who just loves to swim. And that's really why I'm still swimming.
One of the artifacts that will be on display in this new exhibit that we're doing called Champions in a couple of weeks is Jessica's Sullivan Award. And you got this in 2007, is that right? Sullivan Award. It's given to the top amateur athlete in America every year, and not Paralympic, but just top amateur athlete. And you beat out some stiff competition that year, and that's a pretty prestigious award. Congratulations, and we're glad to be getting it back out on display. Tell us about that. Do you remember getting that, and did it mean anything to you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's amazing where Paralympics is at now, but there was a time when people, call me an Olympian, and I'd be like, well, yes, but like I'm a Paralympian. And you could really see the difference, just as soon as I said Paralympian, just the lack of really understanding what the Paralympics were. But I think as an athlete, I definitely felt that. So for me, I didn't always want to be in these disabled categories. I don't view myself as really disabled. I love the Paralympics. I love that it's this amazing movement for people with, disabilities. But at the same time, you look around and you see people doing amazing things. So when the Sullivan Award came around, I loved it. I'm an athlete. I want to be known as an athlete, a competitor, not just like athlete. But obviously it's a huge part of my story. So that award was really exciting just because I wasn't expected to win. I took my dad and my little sister just to go to New York and stay in a fancy hotel and pick out a dress and just kind of meet some of the other people. Or some of the people that I looked up to, like Michael Phelps and, oh gosh, who else? I think Apollo Ono was a part of it. There was like 12 of us that had made the final. So it was really funny. My dad actually, in the hotel room, we're getting ready to go down to the announcement. What is that? The presentation. And he was like, Jess, you should kind of come up with something to say if you win. And I was like, I'm not going to win, Dad. Like, I think I was 14. I'm, Paralympic athlete. Not a lot of people even knew what the Paralympics were at that time still. And then they like announced my name and I'm just like sitting there clapping for the winner, and like nudged me and they're like, oh, it's you. And I was like, really? Like, really what? Like, so I went up and I started to tear up just because my dad had said, just being nominated was really exciting. So to win, to be the first, I think, Paralympic athlete to win was really exciting as a 14-year-old, 15. Especially just, I don't know, got to meet some of my idols. That was really exciting.
Yes, we're so proud of you. Unbelievable. And Kimmie, this year, you had a nice honor bestowed upon you, inducted into the U.S. Figure Skating Hall of Fame. Pretty special, huh?
Yeah, really special.
Oh, my. Now, you're also in the Maryland State Athletic Hall of Fame. So you're a real Hall of Famer here now. So we're going to have to see what comes next for you.
Yeah.
So listen, I want to change gears now and take a few minutes to talk about the current situation as impacted by the coronavirus. The 2020 Olympics in Japan have been postponed for 1 year, if we're lucky. And obviously that decision had to be made. I know that the USOC had a lot to do with that. Bob Bowman did, Michael Phelps weighed in on that decision, but it was a correct decision. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that, given what we know about the coronavirus today. But can you talk about what it means to the athletes who would have been in competition right now, if it had the Olympics going on? Now they have to delay a year. What does that mean in terms of staying ready to compete a year from now? Anything specific? Either of you, go ahead.
Jess, I feel like since you're still competing, this is like really, you probably know firsthand what this feels like. So you want to answer?
Hey, sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I should be getting like packing up right now, getting ready to head to camp and then head to, we were going to be stationed, I think in Japan, somewhere in Japan, one of our Air Force bases or something. But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. And I definitely think it was the best decision. I was out of the water for 75 days. I know someone recently just got into the water. They were out for 130 days. So it was the right call, but it was really hard. I think a lot of us athletes, we connected, we were supporting each other, just checking in with each other, just to see how everyone was doing. And I don't think it's really truly hit yet. I think it's going to hit when opening ceremony or the day of competition later in August, because Paralympics, we go about a month after. But it's tough. And as athletes, we're training for something that's 4 years away, but we're also prepared for the unexpected. And when things don't, we have to adapt. We have to adapt pretty quickly. So this, I think, was another it's really tough. I definitely believe in, being positive through it and developing more mental toughness and ways to, we're all going through this and not even just the athletes. I mean, everyone's getting hit right now. Everyone's going through something. And, it's okay to have really just a bad day. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to feel frustrated with the uncertainty, but at the same time, finding ways to pick yourself up when a new day starts. And I think that's really helped. And I'm really, really grateful to be quarantined with my new husband and I've got a great support system. But it's okay to have tough days and overall just reaching out to other athletes have been helpful.
Well, what does this postponement mean to athletes who are coming to the end of their careers? And maybe this is the last hurrah. And for some, the year delay might mean making a decision between, yeah, let's go for it one more time, or moving on with their lives. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think it cut out the last part. Do you mind repeating the last part of that question?
Just, for career athletes who are nearing the end of their careers, and maybe this is the last hurrah, this Olympics, the year delay, may some of those athletes consider not continuing to compete in 2021 and just move along with their lives?
Oh, I'm sure. This is going to change everything, right? It's going to change who makes the team, who could have medaled, who could have broken the world record. It's going to change a lot of things, and there's going to be people next year who make the team who maybe wouldn't have. It's just a very different. It's definitely not what all of us expected, but at the same time, as athletes, we do adapt, and we get through things. And I don't know what it's like for some of those athletes who are considering retirement right now, because it's a real thought. I know athletes are going through that. I'm still training, and most of the people in my circle, my friend group, are all still going after it. But I think more than just it's taking it day by day. I don't think there's a lot of answers. Everyone's, again, facing that uncertainty, developing this new normal. No one's really sure. But the thing that, again, just that we can control is just, we can control kind of our attitude. And I'm YouTubing a lot of different workouts because our gyms are still a little, not really sure what's happening with that. But yeah, it's going to look different. But as long as you're still developing, like, just that mental toughness, and you're going to see who's really, like, mentally tough through all of this, because it is hard.
I'll bet. Hey, Kimmie, from a financial viewpoint on this, the Olympians are, or the kind of athletes in the sports that you two are in, you do require financial support. And does this year delay put some athletes in jeopardy because of the bubble of financial support, and they don't know if it's going to burst or not? What do you think?
I think it definitely does. Like Jessica was saying, it's really going to change everything. And I think it's really affecting everything and everyone. You can't plan if you've budgeted for these next 4 years of, I'm going to be at a lot of skaters will go to the Olympic Training Center. I'm going to be there for 4 years before, the Olympics. And you budgeted for 4 years, and all of a sudden you have an extra year that you have to be there. It can be really, really tough. Competing in these sports and then being at a high level in them, it can be extremely expensive. And again, like, everybody is experiencing this. So even if you did have sponsors, they might be experiencing a financial impact, which can definitely affect you. So I think it's going to affect athletes in every realm, pretty much, and kind of like Jessica was saying, I think about, like, with skating, I know this is the Summer Olympics, but still looking at a sport like skating, you don't, I guess your opportunities to go are really not guaranteed. Not that any sport is guaranteed at all, but, like, for me, I didn't think I was going to go in 2006. I thought I was going to go in 2010, but by the time 2010 rolled around, I was at a completely different area of my life where I know I wasn't going to make the team. But that was the one that was like, oh, you're going to definitely make that team. But if 2006, this had been happening and I didn't get to go or didn't get to compete, might never have had my opportunity. So again, it was the right decision, but it's extremely heartbreaking, I think. And I would feel very heartbroken over it. Just wondering, like Jessica was saying, is it going to be different when it happens? Are different athletes going to be ready, or they're not going to be ready? Like, sports are all about timing a lot of times, and kind of who shows up that day and how everything's going to go. So, yeah.
Gotcha. We're all watching Major League Baseball right now. It's kind of serving as a kind of a canary in the mine shaft. We want to see how they navigate through these troubled waters. We're all watching. Short of a vaccine, and given the very difficult logistical component of international competition, the Olympics, do you think 2021 can really happen without a vaccine?
I have a lot of opinions on this, so I'm not, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of just guidelines that are not foolproof, but I think that it's kind of hard for everybody to follow right now, and such as like wearing masks or trying to stay distant from people. I know if we could at least all just follow that, we might be able to get our cases in the US lower, not eradicated, but low enough that it would be safe to kind of return back to sort of normal life. And maybe then we could start traveling slowly again. But I think right now it's hard to look at 2021 and think of it as, I don't know, going to be going forward, because it's right now we're like pretty out of control in the US from, I don't want to like too many opinions out there, but I just think that like we haven't really gotten a hold of it yet, obviously, which is why we have travel restrictions. So
Right.
I think if we could start kind of getting things under control a little bit more, everybody recognizing that some of these things might seem like an inconvenience, but it's really for the greater good of the entire population. And if you do want to go back to kind of normalcy or a sense of it, which I think everything will be pretty different still going forwards with sports and with a lot of things, then we kind of have to follow some, what I think are kind of basic guidelines.
I hear you. Jessica, you want to weigh in with anything beyond that?
Yeah, I think Kimmie said it all really well. I can't really let myself go to 2021 yet at the thought of that getting canceled, just because, I'm just trying to get through, tomorrow's training, and just, again, trying to control what I can, control the controllables. But yeah, I think Kimmie said it all really well. It's hard. It's hard to process. And I mean, it was hard when it got postponed and the thought of it being canceled. It's hard. It's a slow process, and just, again, taking it day by day.
Yeah, there are just like so many unknowns. Like right now I'm in school, physician assistant school, and I should be out on rotation at this time. I'm going back on Monday, but it's one of those things where like my professors have had such a hard time giving us information to be like, don't worry guys, like you will get your, your rotations that you need. You're going to get your experience, because students are not, we don't need to be in the hospitals or anything right now, just given what's going on. So this time is just so up in the air, and it's just really hard to say for sure. Like there's no certainty, that's all.
Yeah, you're right about that. Oh my goodness. All right, so we're going to open it up to the audience now.
Good evening, Jessica. Good evening, Kimmie. Thanks for doing this program. My question for you too, Michael Phelps recently has gone on, did an HBO special about depression and the Olympics and competing. So my question to both of you is, what happens the day after? The day after your last competition, what do you feel like? What happens?
It's extremely hard. I know for me, when I stopped competing, it didn't feel exactly like it was my choice to stop competing, just because it was an injury that kind of took me out. And it's terrifying. You don't know who you are without a sport. That's been your identity for so long. That's how people, that's how they identify you. So it's like trying to all of a sudden figure out like, all right, if I don't have, skating in my life, am I A, worth anything? B, what will I do? And C, like, will I ever be able to live up to anything that came before? It's scary. And I think it's, I went through a pretty rough time for a couple of years trying to navigate that. And, again, my family was paramount for me. Like they've always instilled in me that, you're more than a skater. Make sure that you go to school and you have something else. But kind of like we were talking about earlier, I didn't have exactly like the friend group that I think like most people at my age would have had at that point. Because it was like my friends were all in skating and they were still competing. And at that time for me, it was really hard to even look at skating and not be extremely upset about it. I just wanted to distance myself completely from it, just to like take a breath and be like, okay, like you gotta figure this out. So yeah, I have yet to watch the documentary, but I'm dying to watch it pretty much. I think that a lot of retired athletes, or even maybe some athletes who are still competing and thinking about retirement, I think we all face it. And I'm just glad that people are finally really talking about it, kind of making it a little bit more acceptable, that it's like there is an after the sport. I think a lot, there's not always resources for like, what can you do now? So, yeah.
And Jessica?
Yeah, I loved everything Kimmie just said. You know, I'm going into my 5th Paralympics hopefully next year, or maybe 4 years. But yeah, you know, I've definitely learned a lot with each games, and it's really cool to look back and see just growth. But I think, you know, after every games, there's that post-Olympic blues, and I mean, of course, you're celebrating and excited, and it's been gone for like over a month, but then it really settles in, you know, when life gets normal. It's hard. It's really hard. You don't really know who to talk to, and your family, even though they were there supporting you, they weren't in the village. It wasn't, you know, they were part of the journey, but at the same time, it's this weird, it's this weird process that you feel like you have to go through by yourself. And I love that we're talking more and more about the mental health and some of the depression that happens, because I mean, as athletes, we're so used to being in a routine. We're so used to staying busy. We've got that goal. And then when it happens, it's just like, okay, well, now what? I think for me, after Rio, you know, we were just, I would say, just started talking more about mental health with athletes kind of, you know, a couple years ago. But in Rio 2016, it was like, okay, the post-Olympic blues, I was going to only be 6 months, and then I'll, you know, things will get better. And after that 6 months, it was like, no, things are still, like, I still feel really sad. I don't understand, why am I not feeling better? And back to swimming, I just feel this emptiness. And you know, I've had a lot of really great coaches, and who really taught me, you know, you're a person who loves to swim, but you're not just a swimmer. And that's really helped. And talking to a therapist, and you know, now more athletes are talking about it. I do think there needs to be some type of more resources, because it seems like a lot of us are talking to each other, but you know, professional help is hard and expensive, and you don't even really know where to start. So I'd love to see more of that in the Olympic and Paralympic world. But it's really real. And I don't know if it ever really goes away. I mean, there are people who end, and it's kind of like a heartache or a heartbreak. And how do you fix that? And you learn to overcome. As athletes, you learn to overcome, and time helps. But it's really hard. And I don't have all the right answers, but I definitely know talking to other athletes and talking about this topic has been really the right step.
Well, thank you. And to follow it up, and the follow-up question is going to be a little different for each one of you. Kimmie, did you know you wanted to be a physician's assistant while you were competing, or was this something you discovered afterwards? And Jessica, for you, do you know what you want to do after retirement, or is that still up in the air?
I did not know that I wanted to be a PA. I thought for a long time that I wanted to just get into the medical field. You know, my dad is a podiatrist. A lot of my family members are either nurses, or they work in medicine or healthcare in some way. So I've always been really drawn to it. And I think too, as an athlete, you know, you really understand body mechanics and just kind of what it takes, like the toll it takes on your body. So I've always just been interested in it. So after I had my couple of years of just kind of like, I always just call them as like a little bit spinning out of control, being like, what the heck am I doing and who am I? Then I started to get it back together, and I went back to school actually for English and writing, because I was like, I'm going to be, you know, I don't know, I'm going to write, I'm going to be a journalist or something. And found out very quickly that I didn't want to do that. I love writing, but I was like, I went to Sochi as a researcher with NBC, and I just was like, I just can't do it, because I don't want to like get into people's private lives and stuff. So I couldn't do it. And then after that, I was like, all right, I still feel like I'm not done here with school. I want to do something else. So I looked at PT school again, which had kind of always been in my life. I mean, as athletes, I'm sure Jessica's had it multiple times as well, but you have so many physical therapy appointments that I was like, I think I'd like that. And as I started getting my prereqs for that, I just realized that I actually wanted to be really hands-on. Surgery is super appealing to me. So I was like, maybe I want to be a surgical PA, and that's really what got me in that direction. And now that I'm in school, this last year of schooling has been something. It's pretty hard. So I'm just happy to have made it through my academic year so far, which was just as tough as they say. But luckily, I think skating kind of helped me get through that. And now I'm going to go into this clinical year, and I'm happy I made that choice. So I think it was the right choice.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Jessica? Yeah, are you gonna share with the world what your plans are after competition, or is it still a secret?
I don't think it's a secret. I think I'm still, figuring that out. I love swimming. It's one of the best ways for me, a bilateral amputee to exercise. So I plan to swim as long as possible. I definitely would, I have this idea. I would love to end my career in LA 2028, my 7th Paralympics. 7's always been my favorite number. But, again, anything can happen, shoulders. So if I'm not competing, I would love to commentate. I did commentating in Sochi for the Paralympics, and I really loved that. But I had a book come out a couple years ago. I still have ideas for other books, a children's book, different types of books. So I definitely want to get, opportunity to work on those. I love public speaking. I do a lot of different speeches, share my story, and just be an advocate for the disability movement, all of that. But really, I'm not sure. I mean, it's all really exciting. Definitely want to give back to the Paralympics and be involved, but I don't know. Right now, I'm still focusing on swimming and enjoying this crazy journey, and just happy to be a part of it. And that, just that my body's still holding up with all the training.
Well, thank you. You're outstanding representatives for the U.S. and of course for Maryland, and we're thrilled that you're part of our state. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I got to tell you, ladies, that we've seen you speak many times, and now we see you tonight. Both of you can hit the speech tour with no problem. You have a way about you to address the public. So congratulations on that. Katie, do you have anything else?
Yep. Wally, up next.
Yes, I'd love to. What do I need to do?
Unmute.
No, I unmuted.
Yep,
Can
you're
you hear
good.
me?
Yep.
Okay. So I know Kimmie knows that I am a huge fan. Jessica, I've talked to you a couple of times and told you I'm a fan, but you walk around an event. But I am so proud of our state, and I was a basketball player, and I played a little bit. But I love the diversity of talent we have, and Dorothy Hamels was obviously in your space. I knew her well. She's married to a friend of mine, but what you've done, Kimmie, has raised the bar, and Jessica, the bar is you, which is pretty cool. But the question I'd like to ask the two of you, because I obviously I'm in love with both of you, but Mary Ann's more in love. But the question I'd like to ask you is, talk a little bit more about your families. And Jessica, you kind of alluded to it, but today, and Kimmie now, you're 30.
Yeah.
So what's life like with the family that has sacrificed amazingly for both of you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have always been extremely close with my family. I have three older brothers. They're all married. I'm close with their wives. And I also have 2 nephews now, which has been extremely fun. I've got them on the ice a little bit. I got the oldest one on the ice and he just loves it. But I think I feel like I've spent now the later part of my kind of adult life just trying to make it up to my parents, like they never asked for anything. They never once complained about what they had to do or about the financial burden of anything, or just the fact that they sacrificed a large chunk of their lives as well. It wasn't just me who sacrificed all those years. It was them and it was my brother. So I just feel like I'm always trying to constantly tell them just how appreciative I am of them, that, anything I can do for them. Like, I just want to help them now and kind of give back to them. And, I can realize and recognize now what a massive undertaking that was, and that they had just complete faith in me. They just believed in me right off the bat, which is a lot. They didn't have to. They could easily have been like, skating, this is crazy, don't do it. But instead they just kind of kept doing it. So yeah, I'm still extremely close with my family, and my mom is my best friend. She was my maid of honor in my wedding. So those experiences that we had throughout skating, I would never trade it, because it's something that I've always been close to my family, but it's something that brought us even closer together, because kind of like unlike any other, you know.
Well, before we jump to Jessica, I'll just tell you this. Your dad fixed my foot problem, and it's a huge big deal because
Yeah.
what it was I overran and crushed my feet. He's awesome. He is the most awesome. God, I love him. But Jessica,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, I just love my family. And I don't think I'm gonna realize until I have my own kids just the amount of sacrifice or just the amount of love that they had for the selfless love that they had for their kids. My parents had 2 children, couldn't have any more. They tried for about 10, 12 years, something like that. It was a long time. So they looked into adoption, and they decided to adopt me and another little boy in a Russian orphanage. And I think I think that's amazing right there. You know, they decided to adopt kids with who needed help. My legs, I've had about 25 surgeries on my legs. My brother, who was in the Russian orphanage, he had a cleft lip and palate. They got that fixed. And then they ended up having 2 more little miracle babies. So I've always loved being a part of a big family. There's 2 boys, 4 girls. And 4 of us are married now, and there's, I have a little niece and nephews, and it's really fun. And I think my parents did an incredible job, just keeping family the center. I mean, I think I have this unrealistic, idea. We had family dinners every night, and Fridays were family movie night, and friends could always come over, and they were welcoming. And I don't know how they did it all. My mom homeschooled us on top of me going to swim practice and surgeries and prosthetic appointments, and the younger ones, they ended up finding their own sports and interests. But just the selfless love, I think, is incredible. And even when I found swimming, and they always believed in me, the little Russian girl with no legs, and I love that. And they allowed me to fall down and lose a leg in the process. And they were just really great at, I don't know, they were so great. I don't know how they did it. But even now I'm very close with them. We still keep up our family phone calls and FaceTimes. And they've been really incredible. And just, again, even believing me, I actually, so my book that came out a couple years ago, I dedicated it to my dad, who was the one that went to Russia to get me while my mom stayed with the other 2. But I remember being 10 years old, driving to swim practice. I just started swimming. I had never done anything, won a medal, broke a world record, anything big. And he just turned to me and he was just like, Jess, I think one day you're going to have a book. And I was like, okay, Dad. And we would just talk and have this, we built a relationship. And they're just really special. Could go on for a long time, but they're great.
you know what? You only need to do one thing: selfless love. Thank you.
Thanks.
Katie, we got time for any more?
Yes. Doug, you have a question?
Well, yes, I do. First, I'd like to just say thank you to both Jessica and Kimmie for joining us here. I think it's been a big thrill, and good luck to both of you on your future. My question is for Kimmie, and that is, once you get your physician's assistant license, do you plan on staying active in skating in any way, maybe coaching or in some other way?
Yeah, I definitely do. So right now I try to keep a couple of my students throughout school, it was tough last year with the academic schedule, and it was just like kind of crazy, but I had a lot of students that stuck with me, which was great. I actually had my first student make nationals last year, and it was really special because I was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame at that nationals, and my first student was competing there, and it just felt like very full circle and kind of like incredible. I've had her since she was a little baby, doing like singles and stuff, so it was super special. So I definitely plan on still staying active in skating. Coaching for sure. I never thought that I would like coaching, honestly. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna do that. And then during those 2 years where I was like, what the heck am I doing? I started slowly getting drawn back to the rink because I had a friend convince me to skate in a show, and another person just convinced me to take her daughter and give her some lessons. And through that process, it helped me heal. And I now feel like I always want to coach because it's just so fun to work with people on all levels, like whether they're high level or they're just starting out. I mean, it's incredible because you can just see the joy they have for it. And it reminds me of the joy I have for skating, even though, you know, you can sometimes get a little cynical along the way, you know, it kind of brings you right back to it. So I'll definitely stay involved in coaching. I definitely plan on being still in this Baltimore, Maryland area. I love Maryland. I'm never leaving. So I'll still be here.
Good. We're glad you're still here. And Jessica, I'll ask you what you're doing when you retire.
Well, that's still up for debate. I'm still not sure what that looks like. I love commentating. I've got some book ideas. Still sharing my story and speaking. But I actually, just exactly what Kimmie was saying, which is, it's so funny. After my Rio games in 2016, and I was in that weird funk and I just couldn't pull myself out of it. And I didn't really want to swim, which is where I process everything. I decided to take up, or got the opportunity to coach a all high school girls team with Polly Surhoff. So BJ Surhoff's baseball. But so that was an amazing opportunity. But just what Kimmie was saying, you do find their joy, like there's almost healing when you experience someone else's joy for the first time. And even though these girls were just doing it for fun, learning swimming for the first time, technique, it really helped me fall in love with the sport that I had become a little bit bitter over. So I wasn't able to coach because I was going to go to Tokyo. Tokyo was supposed to happen. So I didn't get to coach this last year, but I don't know what the future holds with the coaching, but it definitely was it's super cool to see, and who knows, but really enjoyed it.
Well, great. Well, thank you. Congratulations and best of luck to the both of you. Thank you.
Katie?
Sorry,
Katie,
I
are
was
you?
muted. Yes, I actually have a question. So you guys talk about, like finding yourself outside of sports. Is there any particular hobby that you found outside of sports that's your favorite or helps you unwind?
I picked up a new hobby over quarantine that I didn't know I could do. And this is like a recent one, but I've always been a Bob Ross fan. And I finally was like, you know what? My mom like always tells me that she thinks I'm really artistic and she thinks I can draw and paint. I'm like, no, I can't. But I was like so bored in quarantine like a couple months ago that I decided to finally watch a Bob Ross episode. I got all my like oil paints and everything, and I've just been recently trying to go from season 1. He has 31 seasons, so I'm starting at season 1 and just like painting my way through Bob Ross, the joy of painting, and it's like oddly my new favorite thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
Jessica?
How about you, Jessica?
well, during quarantine, I like painted the living room and painted so many different things, but I've always loved interior design. So I feel like, especially during quarantine, it's just something that brings me a lot of joy. I feel like it's never finished. I love moving things around and just design. And that's been really fun, especially just putting on like a podcast, a book, organizing, painting, picking different colors, picking themes. I don't know. Always love that.
I always like seeing, because you always put it on Instagram. So I think you put it up there like, which one do you like? And I love when you do that because I'm like, she's got such good taste.
Thank you all for tuning in this evening. Jessica, Kimmie, you're the best. And we hope to see you soon, probably and hopefully down at the Babe Ruth Museum for the opening of Champions.